What's going on? Born for Sports. Giants fans, we got some news today as Saquon, Barkley, and Daniel Jones will be New York Giants starting next year. It has been announced that the Giants have agreed to a 4-year deal worth $160 million with Daniel Jones. And Saquon Barkley has been tagged and will be a New York Giant next year, and possibly in the future as they will continue to negotiate as the process of the offseason goes. Now, I'm going to start with some points about the good and bad of what's going on. First of all, with Daniel Jones, I'm not thrilled about giving him $40 million a year at all. At all. He's not a $40 million quarterback at this point of his career. Now, can he be in the future? We will see. Did he deserve to come back as the New York Giants quarterback this year? Absolutely. He had a good year, a solid year this year. You know, he held his own. He cut down on the turnovers. He had a career year under Brian Dable. You know, he led us to the playoffs and won a playoff game with us, you know. So I have no objections on bringing him back. However, the way the negotiations were going these last few weeks, how him and his camp were trying to get $48 million, really had us Giant fans irritated and ticked off. I know I was, you know. So he's not that kind of in that tier, in my opinion, you know, not yet, at least, you know. So I'm not thrilled by $40 million a year at all, but the good news about this contract is we have our quarterback next year under the fold. The options weren't that great, you know, to improve in that area if we wanted to go outside of Daniel Jones. And the contract structure. You know, it says 4 years, $162 million, but we all know in the NFL, it's all about the guaranteed money. It's all about the guaranteed money. And from what I have read, $82 million of guaranteed money, that's basically half of the contract guaranteed, and for a quarterback, which is understandable. But also, it looks like it's going to be front-loaded. So that $82 million will be in the first 2 years. We get cap relief this year to attack free agency and get some free agents. But the Giants will be paying him most of that guaranteed money the first 2 years, which means what? It means that in reality, if things don't get better for us with Daniel Jones and he doesn't improve as a player as they are projecting him to be, they can actually get out of the contract in 2 years. So I love that part of the deal for Daniel Jones. I think Joe Shane did a good job considering where the high demands that they were at, considering what they were looking for. They settled on a solid deal for both sides, you know. And you know what? If Daniel Jones improves as a player and he outkicks the coverage in 2 years, they'll probably negotiate another deal, you know, or they can just keep him for 2 extra years and that contract can be a steal in the future if he becomes the player that a $40 million quarterback has to be. So, you know, we'll see what goes on, and you know, going forward, the Giants have to attack free agency, get some weapons for him to throw to, and, you know, and in the draft as well, and we'll be able to judge him better. Now, also the good news, Saquon Barkley will be back, the Giants' best offensive player. You know, it's a big deal that we have him back. You know, I wasn't in the camp of letting him go, you know, for just to tag Daniel Jones. That's why it was such a big deal to get this contract done, and why us Giant fans were ticked off at Daniel Jones's camp, trying to see if they could force the Giants to give him a crazy contract or the Giants would settle on a tag. Now we bring Saquon Barkley back, franchise tag $10 million. I don't expect him to play on that number. I know the Giants and Saquon Barkley will work this offseason to get a deal done, which is fair amount, fair value. Joe Shane's already said he's got his number already there. They know the deal. Saquon now will negotiate, and they'll settle somewhere in the middle of what his demands are and what the Giants are trying to do. So that is what I expect there. Saquon Barkley, listen, you can't say enough of what he meant to this offense this year. You know, he basically was a one-man game with Daniel Jones, you know. The all-purpose yards, the receiving yards, the rushing yards, the threat. Every time NFL defensive coordinators game plan against the Giants, they had to stop Saquon Barkley first and foremost. You know, he even improved in pass blocking. That's been a major problem for him in the first few years, and he stayed healthy this year. So I think they will settle on a fair deal for both sides, considering Saquon's injury history. And you know what? He wanted to be a Giant. He stays a Giant. That's great news for us. And they'll be negotiating. And you know, I just want to say, you know, this is a big deal for us today. You know, I'm not thrilled with $40 million a year for Daniel Jones, but I'm glad at least they have a structured contract that's fair for both parties. So let's see what happens. Next week is free agency, and you know, it's a good day to be a Giant fan. Let's go Giants.